Hello and welcome to the York Creatives Podcast. My name is Ben Porter, and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Heather Niven. Heather is head of Science City York, an organisation working with the IT and digital, creative and bioscience sectors to stimulate innovation and growth within the city. She aims to help York become one of the most innovative cities in the world through building capacity, infrastructure development and forging relationships and collaborations across the world. In her own time, Heather is also an artist in her own right and the lead singer in a band called Bone Orchids. In this episode we discuss the projects Science City are running and the problems they're trying to solve. We dive into Heather's personal work and discuss the themes different artists are drawn to, as well as discussing how to stay on top of multiple projects by being aware of the time that you're sitting not doing anything and using that to be more productive. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So what is Science City York and why is it relevant to creatives?
Okay, so Science City York is 20 this year. It was founded originally by the head of the council and the head of the university, and it was arranged to address the brain drain going on in the city. And then originally it was to support bioscience graduates who were leaving university and then moving to London and Cambridge. And so they decided that they needed to have some sort of agency that would be able to support those graduates to get into business in the city. And then they realised about 5 years after the foundation of Science City York that creative and IT and digital businesses were actually the fastest growing in the city, as well as the bioscience companies. So they extended our reach to cover creative and bioscience and IT and digital. So we have the three sectors. It's interesting when Yorkshire Forward were in post. When I first started 10 years ago, we were then given a remit to cover all of North Yorkshire as well as York. So when you were working with an artist in Whitby, they were like, why on earth is Science City York running a creative event out here in Whitby? So it makes no sense. The name makes no sense in terms of what we actually deliver. Okay. But what we are there for is to promote innovation in the city and to support the technology growth of our businesses in the city, of which the creative sector, the filmmakers, the graphic designers, the immersive tech guys, all of those businesses come under Creative York.
So what does that look like? What kind of projects do you run?
We run all sorts. We recently did a project called Gambit, which was funded by Innovate UK, and that was around trying to create a wayfinding mechanism in the city to positively nudge tourists to places away from congestion and towards interesting things that were going on in the city. We set up the Phoenix Business Centre at York St John, and that was around encouraging collaboration between different creative industries, different businesses and helping startups. Then it got involved with innovation and open innovation and tried to understand how we could use those technologies and techniques in the city to bring in local authorities, creative industries, academics to try and solve the bigger complicated problems.
What are some of those bigger problems that you're trying to solve?
Oh God. Some of the bigger problems in cities, things like ageing population, that's a biggie. That's something we looked at as part of the Genius York programme. And we're trying to look at future-proofing the city, so looking at, it's a very heritage-rich city. People love to come. It's got loads of tourists, 7.9 million in fact every year. But we also have a really vibrant creative sector in the city, and we have 852 creative businesses in York, which is great for us. And there's a really culturally rich, collaborative, friendly group of people in the city that are operating in that sector. And so for me, it's using that creative energy to solve some of those other problems. So in terms of York in the future, it needs to not stagnate. If you look at things like it's called the Bazalgette Review, which was a couple of years ago, there's a real worry that if you just stick to heritage and you don't try and look to the future, look at where creatives can actually make a difference, where the creative industries aren't automated or can't be automated by robots in the future. That's kind of where we need to be positioning ourselves as a city for the future. Otherwise, it'll become quite a stale place, I would say. You need that youth, you need the passion and the creative industries energy to really inject into the city to keep it as culturally rich and diverse. And people always say that it's a fantastic place to live and to work and do business. But if you don't have the young sort of wealth generators and creative ideas and culture that's going on in the city at the same time, then that will go. So for me, that is a really big problem for the city. And because York is a prosperous city, it often sits on its laurels and feels like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is where I struggled with the innovation work we did. Because actually, it's fine now, but in 20 years' time, I think that over 65s will double in size, and we need to make sure that we're also bringing in that young energy and keeping the graduates who are coming out of the universities and making sure that they're aware of the opportunities that are actually here. You can set a family up here, but you can also run a really exciting post-production company or virtual reality company as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a big problem because even like thinking of me personally, I go to a lot of gigs, but rarely in York. I'm always on the train to Manchester or Sheffield or Leeds or places like that. And not that York needs to suddenly become a gig hub, but we need to have something to offer. Tom from the Media Alley was saying we've got so many like amazing, beautiful buildings here, which you could put so many things on. But there seems to be a bit of a... I don't want to say lazy, but you know, there's a bit of a...
Is it complacency maybe?
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be a will to put things on. But you talk to people and they go, oh, nothing happens. And it's like, why don't you do something about it?
Yeah.
So what can people get involved with, and what do you wish more people were giving their time to?
I think you're right. I mean, I think there needs to be... Sometimes really difficult to do new stuff in the city. You know, people often, you know, they'll often naysay it until it actually happens. I mean, Spark York's a good case in point. It's a fantastic initiative. Tom spoke to me about it ages ago. It was years ago now. And it's taken them years to get that established in the city. And there's been lots of humming and hawing about it before they actually got the thing up and running and open. And now it's open, everyone thinks it's the best thing since sliced bread, you know, and it's often like that in York, I find. I mean, I love York. I've moved down from Scotland. I'd never move back to Scotland. I'd always stay here because I love it here. But that is something that does really frustrate me, it is almost an apathy, and it's almost like there's a feeling that there's not the need, you know, but there really is. There are some fantastic venues for live music already. So there's the Fulford Arms, the Black Swan, you know, Fibbers. There's places that there's cool stuff going on. But in terms of nightclub life and in terms of other stuff, it could have a lot more, and it could be a lot more self-driven by the creatives in the city, because there's no lack of creative people in the city to be doing stuff. They can be the change makers in cities. They are the ones, if anyone's going to change anything, that could actually have that passion and energy to do that. So I don't know what the answer is to your question in a long, rambly way in terms of how you solve the problem in the city. I'm happy to help any creative that wants to put anything on. If there's anything we can do to support that, we will. You know, and we can help in terms of raising the profile or marketing the event if we can through our networks. We've got quite a lively creative network on our books. But at the end of the day, it's just about finding out what folk like and then just cracking on, really.
So tell me about some of your personal work, because you're an artist as well, aren't you?
I am, yeah. It's my passion. It keeps me sane. Stops me being mardy at work. Well, sort of sometimes anyway. I've been painting and drawing since I was pretty much could write. In fact, before then, actually, when I was little, I used to draw. I've got a twin sister, and I used to draw pictures on the bathroom wall with my crayons. And I used to always sign it with an H until my mum and dad realised that obviously I got me into trouble for doing it. And I was like, but it wasn't me. And they're like, but you signed it. So, of course, being about 3, the next time I tried it, I drew on the wall and I put my twin sister's initials next to it instead. Nice. I put an E there instead. So, yeah, I've been pretty much making stuff since then. And my mum was great, actually, when we were little. She'd always have the finger paints out or the Play-Doh or whatever. So I had a really creative and musical upbringing. Which was super. And then I've always done it. Even when I studied psychology at university, and while I was doing that, I was showing every 6 months and having art exhibitions. I had a waiting list for my oil paintings when I was 14, which they weren't very good, actually. They weren't very good. I think people were just being kind.
Okay. Maybe you're a master of marketing. Maybe
I was. I'm probably less good at selling my own stuff now than I was then, actually.
Do you find there's particular themes that you're really interested in exploring?
I've always loved stories. And I love that. I love fairy stories. I was always right into the Grimm sort of fairy tales and stuff like that when I was little. And it's the superstition and the stories that come with those tales. They were often taught to children to stop them going to the bog and to stop them falling in the pond or going into the woods at night or talking to strangers. And they'd craft these stories and they'd pass down this wisdom from times of yore and create these tales. And they always really captured my imagination, and I've always had a really close affinity with nature. I grew up in a village in Scotland, and I spent quite a lot of my life living up in the Grampian Mountains. I was even a shepherdess at one point.
Okay.
So I spent quite a lot of time up in the mountains, and you get a sense of a real kind of ancientness of the place, and I've got quite an active imagination. And so for me, a lot of my work is that space between your imagination and the natural world. And you'll find there'll be lots of gnarly trees, but there'll be little sort of figures or people or things, that just kind of peeking around the corner. And it's almost it's the edge between your kind of conscious and subconscious is the bit that I find really, really interesting, actually.
You get that with some musicians. They say they like to write when they're kind of half asleep, like either stay up really late or like they wake up in the middle of the night and kind of write something. Yeah. And it's something that you wouldn't really think of when you're kind of in the middle of the day and you're well fed and hydrated.
Yeah. And it's interesting, when I was at uni, it was always 4 a.m, I'd be doing stuff. Now, I get home, I've got my arty thing a day, I'm limbering back up again. So when I got the head of Science City job, most of my artwork just went on the back burner completely because it was just such an intensive period of learning about bioscience, which I didn't know much about at the time. And then I realised last year, it was like all of you get one life, and all of this creativity. If I'm not doing it, there's a part of a big part of the spectrum of who I am just disappears, So it became really quite important to get back into it again. So I've set myself a task this year of doing something creative every day. And I've found actually that it does make you much more imaginative during the day. You're much better at solving problems because your brain just is working slightly differently. And it's back to that thing of every evening now, between usually about 10 p.m. and 1 a.m, I'm in my studio when everyone else is going to bed, and working away. And I find it is the most creative time for me.
Why do you think people feel the need to create things?
Oh, God, that's an easy question. Why do people bake cakes, And why do
eat a cake.
Create music? Well, I suppose you can consume creativity, can't you? You either enjoy looking at it or your brain's geared up to enjoy listening to it.
But it's not an easy thing to do. And a lot of creatives get it where they, on one hand, like, they're really struggling with the project, but at the same time they feel like, I really need to do this. Yeah. And that's a really interesting situation to be in. Yeah.
It is. It's me most nights, because you're literally sitting looking at a blank piece of paper or a canvas and thinking, right, what's going to come today? And I genuinely often, before I start, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
So is it just about challenging yourself and trying new things, or is it something deeper than that?
It's partly that. I don't know. I mean, I feel there's a kind of gut need to do it. I do genuinely get really quite depressed if I'm not doing it. It does. I often find as well, people often describe my work as quite dark. My dad's like, can you not paint anything nice? I mean, genuinely, it is quite dark, a lot of the stuff, and that is kind of bordering on the nightmarish as opposed to the fluffy bunnies kind of imaginary world. And in a sense, by creating it, it bypasses me having to feel it, in a sense, if that makes any sense. I'm usually in quite a good mood when I'm doing these really dark pictures, but it doesn't feel like it's contrived. It feels like a natural sort of expression of myself, but I don't have to feel it if I paint it, or if I draw it, or if I carve it, or make it into something.
You get that quite a lot, because you meet some musicians and they seem very normal and happy, and then you hear the stuff they create and it's like, where did that come from? Yeah. But it's amazing. Yeah,
well, my colleague Roz, my friend Roz, who is the musician who writes all our songs in our band, because we've got a band as well, she's the same. She's quite a normal individual and almost jolly when you meet her. She's lovely. But when you actually listen to the work, it's dark. Most of it's very dark. We had to do a charity gig at Fibbers last Friday, and we actually had to edit out some of the songs because we're like, we can't do them for a charity gig. We did do the one about the troll. Okay. So that was quite good fun. I get to do a troll dance.
Nice.
Yeah. It's quite nice, actually.
So have you always had art and music, or did one come first and then the other? Or?
They've come and go in waves, actually. Art is something that it's more considered, I suppose. It comes from a different bit of your brain. I always find when I was doing art and music at school, the art you would kind of focus in on, but the music was instant gratification. You know, you could plug yourself into something really loud, or at the time I was playing the trumpet, you know, you can literally just make lots of very loud noise and it's really satisfying and it's instant. However, if you screw it up, you can't paint over it, you know, so they're both quite different.
Do you find one comes easier than the other? Because the reason I ask is, like, my life at the moment is trying to balance making films and podcasts and things like that, and then trying to find some sort of time to do music, because my life was all about music when I left school, and that was all I wanted to do for sort of 4 years or so. But I found it really difficult. It was always kind of like, it was always an uphill struggle. And then I started doing film and it kind of came naturally, and I thought like, oh, I can do this for a while. But I missed that sort of working on something really hard.
Question for you.
Yeah. If
you've got a really big film deadline, do you suddenly feel the urge to do music?
It depends if it's a project I'm enjoying or not.
Okay. Because that's how I tend to work it. If I've got an art show coming up, then suddenly I'll be really keen on doing loads of music. If I've got a gig coming up, then suddenly I'll want to paint. And it's almost like I use them to procrastinate against each other. So I don't know if that helps at all. I think it depends on what mood you're in as well. It also depends on like practical stuff. Like I can't really make too much noise at 1 a.m, but I can paint.
Yeah, I mean, logically, I know that it makes sense just to kind of leave the music and do film, because it's still creative and it comes more naturally and it makes a bit of money, whereas music just seems to cost money and not make any. But every time I sort of convince myself I've made that decision, all I've got to do is get in the car and turn on the radio and it's like, oh, that's it, I'm writing a song.
Why don't you think about doing music videos? Then you get to combine both.
Yeah, maybe. I've tried doing some of those.
Need for that.
There are, but they never have any budget. So we've tried to do a few, and it's like, oh yeah, we could do this really cool thing. And it's like, oh, we've got like 50 quid.
Yeah, that's
and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I would say is 24 hours in a day, you can fit an awful lot in. I mean, people say this to me, they're like, how the hell do you manage to do a full-time job, which is a proper full-time job. I commute as well, so it's a 36-mile drive in before I even start and then home afterwards. A band who does gig regularly and is recording stuff at the moment, and an arty thing a day when I get home after all of that. And I still fit it in, and I still spend a couple hours a day staring into space, looking at Facebook and doing all of the things like making dinner and all of the, you know, I don't do much housework, I must confess. And I generally very rarely watch telly, but actually you can fit an awful lot in, so why not just do both? Just do both.
Do you find you don't need as much sleep as other people?
No, I sleep 8 hours if I can, as much as I can. In fact, I love sleep. I love my bed. On the weekends I stay in it quite a lot, but you still manage to fit it in. And I think just be aware of the times you're sitting not doing anything, and you will fit everything in if you need to.
So what was the last thing you challenged yourself to do that was out of your comfort zone?
Oh, something that was out of the gig on Friday night.
Okay.
Fibbers, yeah. I've never played Fibbers before. It was very terrifying. I was scared. And then the tech broke. And that's that moment on stage where you're like, oh my God. and almost so there's a sort of disembodied bit of you that kind of takes over at that point and just says, don't worry, it'll all be fine. And you just sort of kind of carry on. But when I was, I've got this complete fear of forgetting the words. And when I was very small, I got complete stage fright, and I remember it quite clearly. I had my sister on the side trying to tell me the words, and I just completely screwed it up. And then at school, at the concert, I had words in front of me, and one bit was sellotaped, and I turned 2 pages by accident and completely had to scat sing the second verse because I couldn't find the words. So I always take my words on stage with me. So because I can't cope with forgetting them, which is this total thing I've got. So that's probably the thing out of my comfort zone. I sang a song without the words, and the tech broke. Yeah. What about yours?
It's got to be finally having singing lessons.
Oh, fantastic.
Because even though I've been like a musician since I was like 7, playing guitar and then piano and drums and stuff, I always really struggled with singing, and it was always like I'd do a tiny bit of backing to other people, but I could never sort of do it on my own, and I always really wanted to, but it's just, I don't know why it's more embarrassing to sing badly in front of someone than like play guitar or drums or anything, because you know when it's an instrument you just play it and it's like, oh, I've not got very much experience, but if you try and sing everyone's like, oh, then terrible. So I eventually, after years, just sort of plucked up the courage and was like, right, I'm gonna have some lessons. So I've had a couple of months of lessons now.
That's brilliant.
Still terrible, but hopefully getting tiny less bit terrible each week. And
Brilliant.
then
No,
maybe
that's
in a year
really
or two I'll be able to actually sing a song.
Hey, oh, well, if you ever want to be in a band,
that'd
you've
be
got one
good.
already, haven't you? I learned singing. I had singing lessons when I was still at school, actually, and it was my art teacher that taught me, and he had me imagining that there was a floating sphere above my vocal cords because he knew I was creative.
Okay.
So he said, imagine there's a floating sphere above your vocal cords, and imagine the colour of what you're trying to sing. Crazy guy, but really good singer. He was a tenor, and it was classical music. But if you try it, it's actually quite interesting to try. So in terms of, is it a cold, hard sort of sound you're trying to make, or is it a warm, fuzzy one? And how does that change that ball in the back of your vocals? And I've no idea if it worked for you, but it did work for me.
Cool, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the scary factor, you can blame the guitar or you can blame the instrument, but you can't blame yourself. That's the problem. Yeah.
What's something that you wish somebody had told you 10 years ago?
You don't have to be in the career to do the things you love. You can, often, 10 years ago, what was I doing 10 years ago? I just started at Science City. Before that, I'd done all sorts. I'd done wood carving, I'd been a shepherdess, I'd been an art gallery manager, I'd done graphic design and web development, and I jumped around all over the place. I was always skint then, It wasn't, this is the first proper job I've actually had. But I think the thing is, you always think, either a job's for life or, if you're going to do art, you need to be in an art career, and you don't. You're capable of doing anything, actually. If you can imagine it, and if you've got enough determination and you're passionate about it, you can pretty much do anything. And that's probably the thing I'd have told myself 10 years ago. Just don't worry about it. Just crack on. Have a can-do attitude. Adapt, because especially if you're creative, adapt to the situation and work it out. And just crack on, and you will achieve it. It's that. And be in control of your own destiny. You get to choose your own destiny. All right, fair enough. Now and again, the world might smack you in the back of the head, and there's not much you can do about it. But you will choose how you respond to the world around you. And you can choose to be a victim, you can choose to have direction and guide your own ship and make your own opportunities. And don't be a victim, just crack on and achieve it, and you will.
That's really good advice. So if people want to see some of your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go on my website, heatherniven.com or .co.uk. That's probably the best way.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Science City York, is that just sciencecityyork.com?
sciencecityyork.co.uk.
Cool.
And then if you want to hear any of the crazy music, Facebook page is Bone Orchids.
Perfect.
Very good.
Just before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug? Anything coming up that people should know about?
The thing I'm most excited about right now is TEDx York. We've managed to acquire the license. I love TED.com. So I'm really, really excited. So that will be on the 16th of November. There are only 100 tickets available. They will not let you have any more than 100 folk in the room. So they're going to go really fast. And I'll be announcing probably at the end of this month the tickets will go on sale. So we're just finalising some of the speakers. But it will be around the topic's blurred realities. And it's exploring how immersive tech and other kind of like future technologies like AI, for example, are going to affect us in the future. How it can be used to really animate and excite people about the past, and also how it can enhance your experiences in the present.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Great. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much.